Gem International is a new diamond explorer in the richest diamond-producing country in Africa, located next to the fourth largest producing diamond mine in the world. International Spotlight is on an 1109-carat diamond recently discovered in Africa by a fellow Canadian junior with a proven operator and finance team. Gem International trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol GI. Visit us at gemdiamondmining.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Rick Ackerman, editor of the newsletter Rick's Picks. His website is rickackerman.com. Rick, President-elect Trump says the first thing he's going to do once he's officially in office is withdraw the U.S. from the Trans-Pacific Partnership, better known as TPP. What does that say about the Trump administration?
I don't think that he's the protectionist that everyone fears. I would say if you look at the fine print of the Trans-Pacific deal, you'll find things that I guess in Mr. Trump's perception are more favorable to our trading partners than to us. And I do think that Trump's idea is to do deals. The whole world is so eager to sell into the U.S. market that I'm sure that Trump can strike some good deals. And this, I think, is the beginning of that process.
Does it send a negative signal, though, or should people just wait back and see what he actually does?
Well, it depends. If you're the New York Times or the Washington Post, it's the end of the world. But, if you're, let's say, a working stiff in the U.S., it's a glimmer of sunshine. So it really depends on your perspective, and I don't think that we're going to see any immediate, any precipitous reaction any more than we did with Great Britain's exit from the Euro Union.
Trump says he's going to promote oil and coal so that jobs come back to those sectors. What can he do?
Well, I think that the environmental controls on coal burning are sufficient that we don't have to worry that we're going to be, all dying with black lung within the next 10 or 20 years. The laws that were enacted under Obama, and which Hillary certainly blessed, basically shut the coal industry down. But the fact is, there's so much of it that we really need to figure out ways to use the coal supplies that we have. I think Germany's already proven that you can't go completely solar-generated power at a price that's going to be cost-effective. In fact, it's cost-prohibitive. And I think part of the solution for U.S. energy needs lies down the nuclear path, and that may also get a little smoother because we haven't had the construction of any nuclear generators in quite some time.
How does Canada stay competitive? The Trudeau government plans to ban Canadian coal-fired plants by 2030, and they're also going to impose a 48-cent a gallon carbon tax.
Well, the tax is really the difficult part of it for me, and I think for a lot of people. It comes from the experience that if you put a great deal of money in the hands of government, they're going to somehow blow it. So I think you're going to see probably a more market-oriented evolution toward rebuilding infrastructure to make make our energy supply less polluting. And I think we can all use cleaner air. But your timeline, Canada, phasing it in by 2030, gives you enough time to incorporate the cost, to absorb the cost more or less organically. And I think that will happen in the U.S. as well.
Although it seems the two countries are on different courses, different philosophies, do you think Justin Trudeau can get along with Donald Trump?
Oh, for sure. And I don't think we're on divergent paths at all. In fact, They'll tend to converge over time, simply for the reason that you don't alter your energy usage patterns really quickly. You know, if you look at a pie chart and you see that the X percent comes from fossil fuels and X percent comes from solar or whatever, even if you project out 20 years, factoring in massive capital investment, you don't really alter the pie chart that much too quickly. So in that respect, the U.S. and Canada both have a long lead time to work out the problems, and because the answers are relatively limited, subject to the wild card of technical innovation that takes us in a direction that we can't even contemplate right now, much less invest in. One would be some type of, cold fusion is sort of a little bit like canceling gravity from the standpoint of physical science, but you can see a lot of companies, Tesla is one, kind of hammering at the problem of energy storage. So we could have a paradigm changer that comes from technology, but otherwise, all countries are more or less on the same track.
Well, when it comes to supporting Tesla, I know a lot of locations, including British Columbia, have free recharging stations if you have an electric car. Compare that to gasoline.
Yeah, but I think the story's out there enough that people realize that electric cars they're not non-polluters because they're getting that power from somewhere. You plug your Tesla in to charge overnight, and the charge that you put on the car has to be, it comes from a power source that was either coal burning or nuclear fired or what have you. So I think we'll over time we'll get over the illusion that an electric car fleet is environmentally clean.
Although here in British Columbia, most of our power is from hydro.
Yeah, and that's certainly a great source of power. It's obviously one of Canada's blessings that's not shared by most of the countries on this earth. Even in the U.S., where you take water which flows in high volumes and at high speeds, such as the Colorado River at some points, by the time you get down to Mexico, it's really just it's a trickle. So Canada is really blessed to be at the top of the water chain.
Why do you think there's been so much negative publicity about the president-elect? Protests after an election? I've never seen anything like that.
I haven't either, and I look at this daily coverage where they'll be hammering every appointment that Trump makes. He's looking at this guy, General Flynn, Bannon, and each one of these guys is either a Nazi or some sort of a bigot, a homophobe, whatever. And of course that can't be true of each and every one of these guys. With respect to Bannon, the first Molotov that was lobbed at him was, well, he's an anti-Semite. Well, speaking as a Jew myself, I can tell you that he is no anti-Semite, and that Breitbart has been very, very supportive of Israel, for one. He's also got, who knows, a dozen people, Orthodox Jews, working on the Breitbart staff. So these charges don't exactly stick, but the fact that they keep coming is kind of disturbing, and you wonder whether it's going to just happen for 4 more years, and what you might find is that the press and all the anti-Trumpers sort of go off and they have their own dialogue and they can seethe for the next 4 years, but the rest of the world sort of gets on with business. So there's no question that the news media has disgraced itself and made itself much less relevant over this last election cycle. But if the hostility that the anti-Trumpers are expressing in these protests gets worse, in other words, if what they feel is really deeply rooted, you might predict that the demonstrations will become more and more destructive of actual property, and then if they take a turn for the worse from there, you might see actual blood in the streets. you might see some physical violence, person against another. So it is worrisome that the press just can't get off this thing about Trump. They should just they lost, and they ought to just, take the new administration in good faith and let things happen.
Yeah, I was going to say, again, protesting when nothing has happened seems kind of weird. If these people have that kind of passion, shouldn't they put it into more legitimate means? If you're not happy with the results, well, just make sure that the opposition is better organized 4 years from now.
Well, that's true. It's like the old bumper sticker says, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. And, there's nothing wrong with opposing Trump, but to just get out there with placards on the streets or breaking windows or whatever, it's not going to change anything for the better. So I just hope that that realization dawns on all the protesters so that their energy is not wasted.
We'll have more with Rick Ackerman right after the break.
I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Rick Ackerman. Rick, is Trump going to have a problem separating government business and his own business? Even during the presidential campaign, he held one of his news conferences in a brand new ballroom to promote the ballroom, and then finally he said, oh yeah, I now believe that President Obama was born in the U.S.
Well, to take these things in reverse order, I think the evidence is so overwhelming that Obama was not born in the U.S. The fact that his birth certificate refers to him as an Afro-American, African-American, which was many years before that term was even in usage, let alone common usage. So I think Trump was right, but he chose to not make an issue of it any longer. But, anyone who raises the issue of conflict is coming out of really such perverse hypocrisy because they've obviously not read the stories about the Clinton Foundation. In this case, Trump he's a billionaire. He does business all over the world, and there's going to be obviously a process, a period of time that's necessary for him to detach himself completely from his business interests. He'll never be completely detached, but if you compare that to what the Clintons were doing, they were essentially operating what purported to be a charitable foundation, essentially to sell State Department favors and get State Department's blessing for donors to the Clinton Foundation. Well, they should be in jail under the RICO statute. The Clinton Foundation was fundamentally a shakedown it was a shakedown operation. And Trump, on the other hand, just does business. I wouldn't say that he's the kind of businessman that you or I or everybody would want to do business with all the time. My hometown's in Atlantic City, and when he took the Taj Mahal bankrupt, he screwed a lot of local contractors. And, initially in a way that I thought, geez, this guy's never going to get nominated if the story about Atlantic City gets out. But it did, and it just became one thing that was weighed against all of Trump's virtues and his other flaws, but more crucially against Hillary's flaws. And Trump wound up winning. So as far as conflict of interest, I'm sure that the New York Times and the Washington Post will never get off that story, and they'll cover it in a way that they never would the Clinton Foundation criminality. But as far as actual conflicts and how it affects Trump's business and his judgment in doing diplomatic business, I think it's a little bit of a stretch to see a problem.
Getting into what I would call real news here, Nigeria says they're all on board for a production cut when they go to the OPEC meeting on the 30th. Will that boost oil prices or at least keep them steady?
Have you been to Nigeria recently, Jim?
I would never want to go there from what I've seen in documentaries.
Right. You would not want to go there. They are, so much of Nigeria is in destitution that you can hardly believe that whatever tin pot dictator runs the country is going to cut off the flow of oil revenues. There's not going to be any cutbacks in supply. You know, even the Saudi Arabians are crying hard times. You know, they're cutting back on certain public expenses and public payroll. And of course, Russia is not anytime soon going to curtail supplies either, if it means a corresponding drop in revenues. So, you know, how many years have we been talking about that? How many years have we heard that? And then the story got kind of flaccid for a while. It was this idea that that output from Nigeria from Venezuela, for one, would slow down because of all the political trouble there. But that's not exactly the kind of story that can drive crude prices wildly higher. So I don't know. Maybe we're having an uptick in crude right now for the same reason we've had an uptick in long-term interest rates, that people sense that things will be, at least for the U.S., economically on an upswing.
One analyst says there's now a 100% chance that the Fed will hike rates in December. Is this the same kind of information source that said Brexit would fail and that Trump would not win the election?
Well, I've been pretty consistent on that one. For the last 10 years, I've been saying an interest rate hike was about as likely as a Martian invasion. And so far, I've only been wrong for 25 basis points one time. That's all. So I've got not an unblemished record, but I think I've got the best forecasting record of anyone out there, and it's pretty consistent. Just we're not going to have a rate hike, even if they tighten another 25 basis points. That's not a significant rate hike, and when you talk about significant means they're going to push rates to the point where people start feeling the pain. But when you look at the critical importance of mortgages and auto sales that are financed with borrowing, you understand how one turn of the screw on interest rates could kill everything. So, you know, every month, and this goes back to the 1990s, these bozos, like one of the Fed guys, Lyle Granley, was talking about, oh, we're going to raise rates next month. You know, he said that a year ago. He said that 15 years ago, and all we've been hearing from them is that same blather, but it never happens. And I'll keep saying that a significant increase in administered rates is as likely as a Martian invasion.
U.S. existing home sales were up last month 2% versus an estimated 0.6% drop. Do you think people maybe were buying homes just in case mortgage rates did go up?
There might be a little bit of that. I haven't seen the statistic myself, and I don't know whether there's a particular skew toward houses that are more or less affordable, which means in California somewhere, you know, anything under $600,000. But yeah, there may be a little flurry of activity now to meet the increase in rates that I don't think is going to come.
Rick, thank you so much for chatting with us. And have a great Thanksgiving.
You too. We're scrambling today to get ready. I'm down in Florida with a cousin of mine and my wife and a couple other people, and we're gonna. It's the first time I've spent Turkey Day in the tropics, but anyway, you have a good Thanksgiving too, and we'll talk again soon.
My guest has been Rick Ackerman, editor of the newsletter Rick's Picks. His website is rickackerman.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Questions can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.